Hello, and on this cold early morning in Melbourne, and I suspect it's the same in Sydney, I'm Dave.
And I'm Rob. Yes, my fingers are freezing.
Yes, the heater is on, but in another room, so that's not very helpful. And we are about to talk about the final episode of Ncuti Gatwa's first season, Russell T Davies' return season, episode 8, The Empire of Death.
Yes, indeed. Here we are, good to go.
Here we are, good to go. This is our hot take. We have literally just stopped watching this about 10 minutes ago. We have no idea what the rest of the world thinks. But before we go on, listeners, for those of you who have joined us for these hot takes, I hope you will please stick around for a bit more of the podcast. Tomorrow we have our List Makers episode dropping for the month of June, and our topic there is top 5 aliens and races from other series we want to see in Doctor Who. Next week, on Sunday, we will be back with our monthly episode, and this month we will be looking back at all of this season, having our more reflective, cooler, lukewarm takes rather than our hot, what the hell was that about take. So please do stick around with us. Hopefully you've enjoyed our conversations, and hopefully you'll enjoy our non-hot take conversations.
Yeah, we've had so many great comments from people over this series, whether on Facebook or Twitter or wherever, that we know you're out there and we'd love you to stick around as listeners.
We absolutely would, and we don't do this every episode because we know it can be a little bit cringe and annoying, but please do subscribe, please do give us a like, please do give us a review, all of those things that helps other people find the podcast.
Would be marvellous, thank you.
On that note, Rob.
Yes.
Word of the week.
Word of the week, Dave. My word of the week is time.
Time. T-I-M-E or T-Y-M-E?
T-I-M-E.
Because we did go down the herbs and spices path last time. So
we did, actually.
I thought it could be a clever joke there, but time, okay? My word of the week was Paris.
Paris? Okay.
So, let's dive in. Rob, I know sometimes you like to go down rabbit holes early and you like to pick little things early, but I'm going to make you nail your colours to the mast.
Okay.
Big picture.
Yeah.
What did you make of that episode?
Big picture, I think it was satisfying enough as a season finale. Is that too little to say?
It's up to you. If you want to put a full stop there, you can.
I think I will.
Fair enough. I think it is appropriate that there were a lot of callbacks to 73 yards because I find myself in a very, very similar position. Did I enjoy this episode? Was I sitting there going, this is good, this is well done. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. How's this going to resolve itself? I was caught up in the drama and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good episode of Doctor Who that I enjoyed watching.
Yeah.
But like 73 yards,
Yes.
I look back at the end of it and go, what was all that about? How did all that work? And as I was sort of putting my notes together, it was really clear to me that if I wanted to pull this episode apart completely and just leave it as nothing but dust and darkness, I absolutely could. And so this is going to be a difficult hot take, listeners. Everything I say that's negative in the next half an hour or so, please do filter through the fact that I enjoyed the spectacle of it. I did enjoy the spectacle of it, but that doesn't forgive it for the fact that I have a lot of what moments.
Yeah, and I think that's where my brief comment comes in that I gave you a moment ago. As a season finale, big picture, 30,000 feet, yes, satisfying, but ... there are things to discuss.
Well, let's start with something satisfying, Rob. What did you enjoy?
I really enjoyed the visual effects in this episode, and for once, I can see where some of that Disney money went. The visual effects looked really good, and I'm not even just saying the obvious ones like people turning to dust and all of that, but just in general, the visual effects looked really, really good, and I was never pulled out of the episode by going, oh, that was a terrible effect. Oh, I didn't believe that moment, you know.
Yeah, I would absolutely concur with that, and it's a note that I indeed had myself. This looked spectacular. Whether it was the depiction of Sutekh, which, again, conceptually, we can have a chat about, but Sutekh looked fantastic. He sounded fantastic. They went to a lot of different locations that all looked good. The stuff in the TARDISes was really good. There were lots of visual things in there. It looked magnificent. It was a very impressive episode in that sense.
Would you have liked Sutekh with green eyes?
It did make me a little bit upset that he didn't have green eyes. I was a little bit sort of, why doesn't he have green eyes? I mean, it just... Yes, that was frustrating.
Dave, the start of the episode, I've already alluded to people turning to dust and all of that. As that was happening, I was thinking, of course, none of these people are going to be dead. This is a fake out. But I was still quite taken with how they did it, with how the dust went through the city. There's 9/11 vibes there, obviously, when the towers fell and dust went through the streets, which War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise movie from yonks ago, picked up on and made use of. And I think that sort of imagery was very much in people's heads when they were probably doing these effects.
Yeah, it was a really interesting moment. I've got to say, the moment when unit headquarters fell and Kate turned to dust, I did have a moment of, oh, they wouldn't do it, would they? They might. Like, if they want to make a big impact, they could kill Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, and she is a bit of a holdover character. She's not one of RTD, so maybe she could. Ooh, that would be a very powerful. And then they killed everybody else on the planet and all of the people that we love, and I thought, oh, okay. And unfortunately, and this is a very nice little sort of encapsulation of the episode. Visually spectacular. Yes. As a moment of television drama, really like, wow, okay, big stakes. But the moment they kill Ruby's mum and grandma and everybody else, I'm just going, okay, the stakes are now significantly lower because I know they're bringing everyone back, and I know however we get there, this is ending with a massive reset.
Yeah, it becomes more about how that's going to happen rather than actually feeling emotional that beloved characters have just died.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Whereas had it just been Kate, I would have been like, wow, the stakes are really high now. People can die. It's not going to be one big reset. And I think that's not the path I would have gone down. And it did occur to me that one of the most effective moments in the Marvel franchise, particularly the Avengers movies, was when you get to Endgame and they have the little sort of prequel bit where they go and wreak revenge on Thanos, and then the caption comes up and it says 5 years later. And I remember everyone in the cinema just sort of doing the... And this idea that, no, we're not just going to reset what happened at the end of Infinity War. We're going to actually have 5 years of half the population of the universe being dead, and we're going to live with the consequences of that. And that was a really powerful moment. And I just think that the lack of consequence of anything that really happened here is a shame. Does it detract from the excitement of watching it? A little bit, because I did sort of think, well, okay, we're all getting out of this in one piece right at the start, but it was still visually spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the conceit had been that Kate was saying to the others, get out of here, and she sort of stood in front of the thing and turned to dust as they all escaped, and somehow some of them survived and some didn't, you still might be left thinking, well, at the end, they're probably going to bring Kate back, but you wouldn't be sure. But by wiping everyone out, as you said, you know they're going to come back. Yeah,
so it was an interesting choice. It is what it is. Another positive, I think, for fans, there were obviously many, many little references and highlights and things for us to, go, ooh, squee and fan wanky. The moment when Mel sees the Sixth Doctor's costume was a really nice moment. Yes. I liked seeing the Pertwee time rotor stuck on the roof. Little sort of flashbacks to Pyramids of Mars. That was all very nice and lovely.
Oh, for sure. For sure. You know why it's there, but you go with it. And it ties in this concept of the memory TARDIS, which has formerly just been this sort of side offering, where our companions can just go and make little videos for the UK market only. Of course, we don't get to see them down here, folks. We have no idea what they are.
No, and we have to say at this point, we haven't seen the new Tales of the TARDIS, because we can't.
That's right. I've seen some screen grabs from it. People talking about, oh, look, they've done new effects like the background behind Sutekh and stuff and all of that, but I've not actually seen it, no. And I was wondering if that actually tied into this episode. Like, there is a moment in this episode where it's almost a cut, and then they go into the Tales of the TARDIS episode, and then there's a cut, and then we're back in this episode. I was wondering if that is possible, but not having seen it, I don't know.
Yeah, it would make sense to me if it was, but yes, they won't let us watch it in Australia, so until bootleg copies start, making their way to us. Not that we would ever do that. We won't see it.
Quick question from me, just because we were talking about the dust a moment ago. This whole thing about Sutekh's dust of death, couldn't that have just been Sutekh's gift of death, which is the line, in quotation marks, because it's killing people? Is it just RTD wanting to write in a new Sutekh line rather than just sticking with the gift of death?
Yeah, I took it that way, and I thought it was sort of... It's one of those weird things that RTD does where he tries to have a thing. He needs to have a line or a thing or a grab or something. So it can't just be Sutekh's killing everyone. It needs to be he has dust of death.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little bit cheesy, but whatever, it worked, and I went with the moment.
Cool. The idea of Sutekh clinging to the TARDIS all this time... Starting with the 60th anniversary specials, we've had the TARDIS making weird noises from time to time, and the Doctor sort of looking at it and thinking, what's that all about? And that was meant to be it's reacting to Sutekh being there. But of course, because this hasn't been a thing for the past 20 plus years or more, going back to the Tom Baker era, I just found it weird that Sutekh's been there all this time. I thought, maybe he could have hitched a ride in more recent times, maybe when the universe broke down and he latched on then. Did he need all this time? And I guess that ties into it. He has to have travelled to all these places for this to have worked, and I found it a bit clunky.
So... I had the same problems I had with the church on Ruby Road, where the sound mix was really, really ordinary. I had to turn the volume right up just to hear the dialogue. And I don't think I quite caught exactly what the Doctor said in that. So just let's work through this. The explanation was that Sutekh at the end of Pyramids of Mars doesn't go down the time corridor, but somehow clings onto the TARDIS.
Yes.
And he's on the TARDIS from then on. Right, okay. Look, I'm happy to roll with that, and I think that the narrative point then that the Doctor has facilitated, aided, unwittingly abetted Sutekh's destruction of the universe is an interesting one, and I think it leads to Shooty gets to show his emotional acting once again. Mm-hmm. So I actually kind of roll with that. What I didn't then roll with is why the time vortex suddenly killed Sutekh at the end.
Right, yeah.
Because if he spent, hundreds of years or whatever riding around holding on to the TARDIS, sort of Captain Jack style, if he survived all that, and he survived everything the TARDIS has been through in all those seasons, including, being destroyed by the Daleks in another RTD story, etc., he survived all that, but he couldn't survive the TARDIS. Maybe it's because he was just loose without the TARDIS to protect him. I suppose that's an explanation, but that was something that did sort of make me go, well, why is Sutekh dead now? He survived all that, he can't survive this?
Yeah, maybe it is that. Maybe it's being close to the TARDIS. There's a bit of a bubble around it that protects you from
yeah, okay.
Well, obviously when the doors are open, the Doctor and companions can sit on the edge of the TARDIS and they don't get, harmed in any way. So maybe, just outside that bubble, once they detach the snatch strap off the Doctor's Hilux or whatever they were using there, and he flies off. Yeah, then he disintegrates. Yeah, maybe that's what was meant to happen in Pyramids of Mars, that he would go off into the vortex and be destroyed that way. Okay,
I can roll with that. Let's keep talking about Sutekh.
Yes.
Highs and lows. I thought the fact that he did basically destroy the universe was really good. I thought it gave him a lot of credibility. And I was a little bit worried at one point where they were sort of talking about his empire of death and everything. I thought, oh no, they're going to just make it like the Monks trilogy. Like Sutekh's just going to have some rubbish empire where everybody's a slave for no apparent reason. And I was like, that would be really bad.
Yeah, and people have been talking about this pantheon of terror or pantheon of something with all the other Eternal type characters, and I was thinking, oh no, they're going to be like an evil Justice League or something, and all hang out together, and oh my god, this is going to be horrible.
Yeah, so really glad those terrible things didn't happen. We did get Sutekh sort of going back to the core of his conception as a character, which is that he fears that all other life will rise up to overthrow him, and the only way he can be the most powerful one is to destroy everything else. So he did it, and he had really great power in doing that. It raised the stakes. Gabriel Wolfe, although his voice isn't as strong at 92 as it was 40 years ago, he's still great. There were lots of good moments. That sort of worked. The visual of him being a great big giant Jackal was definitely better than the slightly dodgy puppet that he was in the very end of Pyramids of Mars. So lots of good things there. But the downside of being a sort of giant jackal is that there were moments when he was just sort of acting like a giant jackal and sort of snarling and batting his paw. And I thought, oh, that's a bit pathetic. You're an Osiren. You don't bat your paw at things and snarl. So what did you think, Rob?
I made a note here, talking about him destroying the universe, and I wrote here, well, this has outdone the Flux.
Yes.
where a bit or even a lot of the universe was... No, this was everything. Or almost everything, Dave, because we did go to that strange little planet briefly, where an unexplained woman was hanging out with a spoon. And...
Yes, so just before we leave Sutekh, I just need to point out to you, Rob, that Melbourne lasted longer than Sydney did.
You were looking at that map.
I was looking at that map, and Sydney went first, and Melbourne had an extra few minutes, so points to us.
Oh, well, we always have to be first, Dave. Look, that weird little planet we went to was very unexplained. I know we flash back there in the end and she's sort of living in a forest, which then made me think, well, where was this opera house she lived near? I don't know. But rewind. We went there and Shooty is wearing this poncho that seems to be made out of the material that her tent is made out of. And I'm thinking, hang on, how much time has gone by? Is he still in the memory TARDIS? Has he still got his companions? Why has he got this poncho? Has he been living on this planet for a while? That whole segment seemed very unexplained, almost like there was a scene missing. Like the Doctor has to explain to the companions, well, we've found a bit of humanity that's left on this planet, and I'm going to go and visit them, or something. I found that such an odd moment.
I did as well. I also thought there must be a line or something here that's been cut along the lines of, ooh, the TARDIS has picked up some living thing that seems to have survived.
Yeah.
It's not going to be able to resist long, but quickly we need to find out what this thing is or something. It did feel like there was a cut there. It was very, very strange. I did think that it was a giant piece of misdirection.
About Ruby's mother.
Clearly, we were meant to think that was Ruby's mother and that Ruby was the kid in the cot. The fact that she's in a sort of a cloaky sort of thing and the Doctor's in a hoodie, that's similar to what Ruby's mother was wearing. I think was meant to be there. Then I think we were meant to think that the woman was Susan because she did the whole I grew up on this planet but I wasn't born here and I had a husband and I had a kid, and I was sort of like, oh, they're going to go down the path of the Doctor's great-granddaughter, which they didn't, and that's probably a good thing. Other than getting the spoon, I don't know what that contributed other than bafflement and bewilderment, unless that is set up for season 2.
Yeah. Even the spoon, though. Why did she only have one spoon? And why were all the spoons missing from elsewhere in the universe? Like, we saw that on Earth, it was just the people who had turned to dust, or objects hadn't. So I assume Earth would have been full of spoons. Why wasn't her planet full of spoons? Why did she only have one spoon? Maybe there's an answer and I just don't know it yet. But I was very frustrated by that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did sort of have, that moment of why has she and her spoon survived? I wasn't sure whether we were meant to believe that the child was alive when the Doctor arrived, but during the conversation the child died.
Yeah, because he went in and he obviously acknowledged that it was a child, but maybe the child had turned to dust during their conversation because they were all about to turn to dust, and that's why she turned to dust after they finished talking. Maybe
I think so, which is a good moment. Yeah, it was a moment that kept me thinking, where are they going now? But it is also a moment where you look back and go, what was that all about?
Did you think Mel was going to kill herself?
No.
Okay. When Mel realised that Sutekh had some control over her when she briefly got the skull face, I thought she was going to throw herself out of the TARDIS. And then later, when she was in the hallway in that building, when the Doctor sent her out to be on guard, she had another look on her face where I thought, she knows something is wrong. Is she going to throw herself out a window or something? Maybe that's too dark, but I was having that thought.
Yeah, that is a bit dark, Rob. Okay, wow. That would have been interesting, but no, that didn't occur to me. I did pick up the moment where the Doctor holds Mel's hand and he has a moment of like, oh dear. And that obviously came into play, so I did pick up that up. That was nicely seated. I liked the moment of Bonnie sort of wrestling with, I'm very sad that I've been taken over by Sutekh, but there's nothing I can do. I thought that was good.
Okay.
Let's talk about
Yes.
Susan Twist.
Okay.
That was one explanation I think we got and was satisfactory, that Sutekh is just sort of seeding Susan Twists through the universe to turn into his emissary. That was an explanation. It was an explanation that made sense. It's like a lot of these things in television where it is meant to have been happening for the last 40 years of Doctor Who, but it's only happened this year. It's kind of like the hybrid, just, this season everybody happens to be randomly mentioning the hybrid that we've never mentioned before or since. Like, it's always going to be that thing because it's only been invented for this season. We know that, but I thought it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, it looks like she's being set up to be a potential returning character in much the same way as the unit characters are. That could be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So that worked. Ruby's mum.
Yeah, a lot to say here.
Well, say it, please, Rob.
One of the notes I noted down was, why would you point at a name on a sign when no one else sees it? It becomes this big thing. Whoa, what was she pointing at? Oh, she was pointing at the name. She was naming you. But who did she think was seeing her do that?
I struggled with all of this.
Right.
I struggled with the explanation that she's just a normal person, but she's special because you make her special. I was like, okay, that's a nice little piece of drama, and if we were doing a rom-com, that would be a lovely little message for the movie. But we're doing sci-fi, and that doesn't give her magic powers. Sorry, that didn't work for me.
Right.
Why was she walking around in a mysterious cloak and we couldn't see her face, and she's the whole pointing thing, as you said, there's nobody sitting there watching her. Nobody would ever know that she did that. You're naming her by pointing at a road sign. That was just weird. But just the whole way, the whole body language of sort of, she's walked out of a Tolkien movie and I'm pointing dramatically and holding my point. And no, it's like, sorry, I don't know whether this was where RTD was going the whole time, or he's just gone, I've got nothing for this. I know, I'll just do this. It all fell flat. It was probably the weakest part of the episode for me. Look, notwithstanding, I get a lot of people would have been very moved by the reunion scene and all that sort of stuff, but
I was.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you were. I wasn't. I'm not known for my, emotional depth. But I was just sort of going, oh, this is just such a pathetic resolution on the whole thing. And I don't know, again, whether the whole snow thing is carrying over to season 2, because there was snow when Mrs. Flood did her outro. We'll talk about that in a moment. So whether there just was no explanation for the snow other than magic, or the snow is yet to be explained, I don't know. If it is not yet to be explained, I think that was a cheat.
Well, we have confirmation that Ruby obviously isn't back for the Christmas special, which, rewind to January this year, that was in the Daily Mirror. Millie Gibson won't be in the Christmas special. People are like, don't believe newspapers. Well, here's the setup. She's been left on Earth. I think Shooty's off with a new companion, a one-off companion in the Christmas special. So I think that Daily Mirror piece was on the money, Dave.
Sounds like it. Mrs. Flood?
Yeah, Mrs. Flood, I still don't have a grasp on. I mean, she's in at the end like she's Mary Poppins up on the roof. What's going on there? All her dialogue with Cherry Sunday still seemed quite sinister at times, and I'm thinking, why is she being sinister? She's not actually taken over by Sutekh here. What is going on? I don't get that at all. No,
she definitely had that line where she said, and I had such great plans. And that definitely sounded like a villain who's sort of been comeuppance by a bigger villain. And, we were sort of, I think there were hints that maybe she could be involved with Sutekh in the first episode. And then it was made very clear that, no, she's somebody else. I think we're meant to imply another baddie who has been doing some planning on Earth, or he's stuck on Earth or something, and gosh darn it, Sutekh's just killed me too. That's unfortunate. That's how I read it. And again, I can only assume that she's going to be a big part of season 2.
So is she the one who waits? Because we never had a moment like, Sutekh, you are the one who waited. So is it actually really Mrs. Flood is the one who waits? I don't know.
I think that Sutekh is meant to be the one who waits. And
well, he did wait. We know that much.
Yeah, he did wait. And then when he got a bit baffled by a low-resolution VHS, he decided that it was time to stop waiting. So I think Sutekh's the one who waited. But again, maybe I'm missing that.
Well, to be fair, most of Gen Z would get bewildered by a VHS tape, so maybe it's not so strange. I don't know. Hello, Gen Z, if you're listening.
Speaking of Gen Z, cultural appropriation, we should just mention, I sort of like sighed and went whatever,
yes.
but whatever.
Yes.
Something we didn't get?
Mm-hmm.
Caroline Ford?
Yeah, I mean, she's been rumoured for so long. Back to the Capaldi era, where Capaldi was talking off screen, wouldn't it be great if the Doctor met Susan? People think, oh, well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Every season, it's going to happen. And this was surely the time to even, as you had said in a past hot take, even just have a coda at the end where the Doctor goes to visit Susan. And we just, even if she doesn't have dialogue, because I know she's old and, she hasn't acted for decades and decades, even if they were just sitting down and having a cup of tea and the camera just sort of zoomed out from them.
Well, she was in an Adventure in Space and Time 10 years ago, so she has acted for 30 seconds in the past. But I actually thought that maybe they were going to do what I said, that after she said, you didn't even go back and visit your granddaughter, he said, well, that's the very next thing I'm going to do. And there would have just been a moment of, I should have, something like that. Again, they've done so much seeding, and even that last conversation where she's like, you're a bad person because you haven't gone back to visit your granddaughter, still makes me think, maybe even Christmas special?
I don't know. Because, I mean, I've read a bit about the Christmas special, like who his guest companion is and all of that, and I'm not seeing Susan popping up in that,
Okay. So, look, I'm disappointed we didn't get Caroline Ford. I think that after all of the jangling of Caroline Ford in front of us, to not do it in this episode was a shame.
Yeah.
Not totally writing it off, because this is the first time in really ever that they've done 2 seasons written and filmed back to back. So there is the greater possibility stuff is holding over, and that includes Susan, that includes the explanation of the snow, that includes who Mrs. Flood is, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, but it's another year away, Dave.
It is another year away, so be it. Rob, I'm not convinced about this iteration of UNIT. I've long said for a long time that modern writers don't understand the military, don't understand how UNIT works. There are many little details that I could go into, but won't. But I will say, you can either have stupid, crazy tomorrow people-looking machine robot, or you can have stupid, crazy tomorrow people vibes little kid. But both of them in the same show was too much for me.
What did you think of his machine gun built into his scooter?
Oh, that was just like... We've seen that how many times now with RTD? Just, they've got a machine gun in the wheelchair or the scooter, or like that was whatever.
And Rose not picking up a weapon. What do we take away from that?
I didn't even notice Rose was in this, to be honest.
When they were all blazing away with their firearms or their scooters, Rose was standing behind them just looking at an iPad. It seemed a very weird moment. Like, is it trying to say, well, she's a pacifist, she wouldn't use a gun? But in a moment of sheer terror where you're blazing away at a god and all your pals are doing it, to just sort of be detachedly looking at an iPad seemed bizarre.
Yeah, and when you've got the kid shooting...
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. No, I didn't notice it. As I said, until she woke up at the end of the episode, I was like, oh, she was there too. Huh.
Yeah.
Rob, we've been going for half an hour already. That's fair enough. It is the big conclusion. It is the Empire of Death. But it is time now for the Sports Desk of Death.
Let's go.
Rob, we are here at the Sports Desk of Death for the final one of our Shooty Season 1 hot takes to talk about our Player of the Week, our Foul of the Week, and our Player of the Week. Rob, lead us off. What is your Play of the Week?
My Play of the Week, Dave, was dragging Sutekh around in the vortex. I think it looked visually good. I think it was narratively good. I would have done it a little tougher. I would have had a bit more fight. I would have had a bit more of Sutekh sort of crawling, grabbing the rope and crawling up the rope and almost getting to the TARDIS once or twice. Maybe even getting there and like hitting the TARDIS and the TARDIS veering off course. I just would have made it seem tougher and harder. But broadly, I thought that was a really good moment.
Interesting. I wasn't really sold on that moment, so I'm glad you were.
Mm-hmm. Good.
My Play of the Week was the death of Kate.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that in a sort of like, ha, I think she's a terrible actress. Very, very clear. Not about that. as this intro was building up, I'm going, okay, Sutekh's dust of death, what does this do? How's this going to go? And then the moment of, oh, wow, they've killed Kate Lethbridge Stewart. Would they go there? Yeah. Maybe they're going there. Wow, that's really impressive. It was unfortunately spoiled about 30 seconds later when they started to kill everyone else. But I've got to say, in that moment, as I'm, a little bit blurry-eyed, having woken up and, wrapped myself up on a cold morning, because I didn't get to sleep till very late last night because Carlton absolutely thumped Geelong, and I was very, very excited and sort of, couldn't get to sleep till after midnight.
Yes, we were still messaging each other around midnight. I know that much.
Yes. So through all of that, you know what it's like when you put on the thing, and I was like, okay, what's going to happen? Yep, right, this is happening, and okay, oh, wow, they've killed Kate Lethbridge Stewart. Okay, yeah. I'm now awake. I'm now watching it. So I thought that was a really isolated in and of itself, a good moment.
Cool.
I'll keep us going with our foul of the week. And I'm sorry, this is probably going to be a controversial one. There'll be others who I think might even have this as their pick of the week. But it was the, oh, your mum's special because she's ordinary speech.
Right.
I get what they're trying to do. As I said, if this was a rom-com, that would be a lovely little message speech. But given all of the build-up, all of the things imbued in this, all of the mystery, even last episode about she doesn't have a face and what's she pointing at, and she's the thing, and then Sutekh's the one thing in the universe that I need to know about. And it's like, no, she's just good because, gosh darn it, she's special to you. I'm sorry, I did not buy that at all. I think this is one of those moments, kind of like the Doctor's romance in Rogue, where if it hits you, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
If it misses you, it's going to be terrible. It missed me.
Yeah, agree with that.
Your foul, Rob.
Dave, you've already mentioned it, so I kept my powder dry a few minutes ago. It was the cultural appropriation line.
Right, okay.
Because I know why it's there. It's one of these hot button things that they think will appeal to a certain part of the audience. They said that. Isn't that fabulous? But you rewind, and I always took it to be that the Osirans looked like these jackal creatures. Sutekh then influences ancient Egypt to be drawing this, to be looking towards this as a god, and all of this stuff. And in that sort of ancient aliens way, aliens had come to Earth and influenced the culture. And I always thought that was a really cool thing. But that line in this episode, as glibly as it's made, now flips that on its head, and the Osirans turned up here and thought, oh, they worship these jackal-type things. Oh, gosh, it's quite lucky I look like that as well. Wow, I can pretend to be a god. I just think that's just such a cheap way of looking at it. I thought it was much cooler where the alien influenced Earth, rather than the alien just coincidentally looking like something the Egyptians worshipped, and so he leaned into it. That seems lame to me.
Yeah, look, it was an utterly glib line, as you said. I think that is correct. And don't forget, it wasn't just Sutekh that visited Egypt. It was the 740 fellow Osirans who came, because remember, the 740 gods inscribed on the tomb of Tutmosis III. Yes, I have seen pyramids enough to be able to repeat that line. But yes, it was that the Osirans came to Egypt, and because the Osirans used pyramid power and built in pyramids, the Egyptians copied that. And because the Osirans used a certain type of stylistic design, the Egyptians copied that. And it is meant to be a chariot of the gods type thing, where Egyptian culture is influenced by aliens, which is a wonderful science fiction concept. And just to be like, well, Sutekh went to a Halloween party once dressed as an ancient pharaoh, and that's not good, ladies and gentlemen, was a bit pathetic, yes.
Yeah.
Keep us going with your player of the week, Rob.
Dave, I could have given it to one of the cast, but I was so impressed by the visual effects as I began this conversation. I'm giving it to the visual effects team. I thought this looked really good. I was never pulled out of the episode. I finally saw some Disney money on screen, and I thought it looked wonderful.
I came very close to doing the same thing, so really, really agree with you there, Rob. That's a really good pick. I did give it to Ncuti Gatwa, though. I thought that although a number of the decisions about how his Doctor is going to act in all this is not how I would write the Doctor, given what he's been asked to do, he does it absolutely brilliantly. He is a more emotive Doctor, he is a more touchy-feely Doctor, and he does bring that in. I was a little bit disappointed by the whole, you've now made me a killer. It's like, have you seen the last 60 years of Doctor Who?
exactly.
Like, come on. What, killing Sutek's the one that's a line too far for you? No, sorry, that was a bit too much. But again, he delivered that speech really well. So performing what he had to, Shooty Gatwa.
Marvellous. I thought he was great too.
So, Rob, that brings us to the end of our last hot take. We've gone a little bit longer than usual, but that's okay. It's the big finale. And as again, we will be back in 8 days' time with a look back at this season. And there are a number of sort of themes about how this show has worked or not worked, or the rest that I'm very keen to pull out and talk about in a bit more depth in the wider space of a monthly. I come back to where I was at the start. Very entertaining, great spectacle. We could have pulled this apart a lot more than we have.
Yes.
In fact, I think the whole thing really doesn't set up to much pressure at all, but that's where we were.
Yeah, I feel it was a little flimsy here and there. We could have done that. We've barely scratched it. Yeah, we'll see what we get to in our wrap-up show.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a B+. I think there's a lot to commend it, a few little flaws that could rise over time if I decide I just don't care about the faults, but my hot reaction is a B+.
Yeah, mine's 8 out of 10, which is the same as the previous episode. You know, so it's up there. It's the highest score, equal with the previous episode and Boom, that I've given an episode all season. So for anyone out there who's thinking, oh, you guys don't like this, no, it's an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. It's just not a classic.
Yeah, I think it is going to have to sit in the mind a long time, as a lot of these things are. But we'll talk about that more next month. Rob, your word of the week was time, with an I.
Yes.
Please explain.
Dave, I need more time with this than any other episode this season. So wonderful segue you just gave me a few seconds ago. Simply, at the end of this, when I was looking at my notes and I was scratching down a few more notes, I was thinking, I've not quite got this. I've not quite got there with this. I need more time. So, time.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. My word of the week was Paris.
Yes.
That's because it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the best of RTD, it was the worst of RTD. I think this is just peak RTD. And Paris, obviously, is the city in which A Tale of Two Cities is set, so that was my link into that. I was thinking, as I was pulling my notes together for this one, it really is the best of RTD. Like, there's excitement, adventure, and really wild things going on. There's big emotional speeches. There's all of that stuff.
The human element where she gets together with her mum. Yeah.
Yeah, there's all of that. It is the best of RTD. It is also the worst of RTD because most of the plot does not come together very well. There's lots of sort of little things left dangling there. The human element is given greater weight and importance than the plot element, which, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. There are a lot of things in this where I've gone, why has he said that? Why has he done that? What's that all about? And as I was coming into this review, I was really thinking, right, that's how I have to structure where I'm going to talk about this. The best stuff is the spectacle and the fact I enjoy this episode. The worst is that a lot of it just does not make sense and does not work. And I've now said that a couple of times. So that Tale of Two Cities approach was my word of the week.
When you said Paris, my mind went to running through Paris.
We're running through Paris.
And you were going to make a comment on the incidental music because, Dave, this whole season in the hot takes, I've noted this every week and I've been waiting for it to happen. It still hasn't happened. We haven't mentioned Murray Gold.
No, he's been a little bit more on the chain this season than back in the old days. This time I did sort of go, wow, okay, Murray's really going for it here, particularly because the sound mix was off, and until I really turned the volume up, I couldn't hear some of the dialogue.
Yep.
Look, Murray's being Murray. Murray's doing what RTD wants him to do. I think I've just become enamoured to it.
I think he's been less bombastic this season.
Yeah, that's my vibe. Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah. Anyway, we won't go down that rabbit hole now.
We won't go down that rabbit hole. Look, that's our hot take of the Empire of Death. As I said, we will be back tomorrow with our list makers. We will be back in 8 days' time with our monthly show, which will include some news, a few short topics, what we've been watching, but our main segment will be a look back on this. We have had our Gin and TARDIS episode on the Twin Dilemma, which came out a couple of weeks ago. Thank you to everyone who voted over the last week or so, and we will be watching the Carnival of Monsters over a few gins sometime in the next month or so, so that will be out. There's lots more to come on the Doctor Who show, but until then, I've been Dave.
And I've been Rob.
Go Blues, we'll speak again soon.
Go Canterbury, bye-bye.
Bye.